Almost there.
You told me that aliens really exist.
How was I going? That
You met them and swooned with elation.
You are listening to the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set out to bring you news, interesting topics and interviews with people, mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 503. I am your host, I am the Eggman, and joining me are Anders Pinter, Claire Klingenberg, Deborah Hyde and Pontus Bookman. Alright trips.
Sziasztok!
Dobré odpoledne. Good afternoon.
Hey, hejsan, QED!
Yeah, hello QED! You guys are like the sixth man, you're the Pete Best of this podcast, okay? Yeah, you need to keep that level up for the full 45 minutes-ish we're doing. Everyone enjoying themselves at QED so far? Alright, good stuff. We're going to try and not bring that down too much, okay? Anybody overdo it at the bar last night?
Yes.
Okay.
Surely that never happened.
Did anybody wander off into the wilderness to get takeaway food late at night?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. More on that later. Did anybody come to last year's live show? Show of hands. Okay. Thanks for coming back. Okay, so behind the curtains a little bit, folks. After we do our live shows, we have a bit of a post-mortem, don't we, folks? Yeah? And the consensus of last year's show?
Depressing. Thanks for bearing with us.
Yeah.
That was very heroic of you, all of you who did.
Yeah, so we picked stories independently mostly, and it just turned out we all picked real downers, okay? So with that in mind, and surprisingly QED asked us to come back, right? Maybe it's just to make sure everybody leaves, right? I'm surprised they didn't put us on at the end. We took the decision this time to do good news stories only. So,
We're going to try really hard.
Yeah, but before that, can I have a bit of a sentimental take on things?
sure.
So first of all, how many of you were there at the panel about the past and future of skepticism this morning? Yeah, great. I was so excited that I got the mic. You can imagine how that is for me. That I forgot to tell that it's actually QED that we can thank for the podcast that it came about, because without that we wouldn't have met with Pontus. That we wouldn't have met Susan Gerbic, and the whole idea wouldn't have come up a year later in 2015 at the European Skeptics Congress. So we owe this podcast to QED, and this is such a great community that we should somehow try to keep going with that community building, and let's not stop gathering. Hopefully on a yearly basis. And please don't stop listening to this show either.
Okay, yeah, so hopefully we're not going to start disappearing from Deborah's photograph that we're just taking there. And with that, by the way, like remembering that we are currently living in the Biff Tannen steals the Sports Almanac timeline, good news has been pretty hard to find, so maybe some of the stories might be tenuous, but silver linings at least to all of them, okay? And our investigative skills have been tested to the limit, I think, everybody. But we did have some help from the skeptical community. Some of you who are in the room right now, well done you. So we're not being like the meme of the dog in the flaming building saying like everything's fine. We're offering you folks some temporary solace and hope and joy and wonder, at least a little bit of distraction, and what better place to do that than slap bang in the middle of QED. So, should we do a show?
Yes.
Is there a show? All right.
We've got an audience.
Well, yeah, I know, surprisingly. Yeah. Okay, so first on the agenda, we're going to do This Week in Skeptical History, also known as TWISH. Andras.
Hey. Well, I have to admit that I'm not at all into the world of law. It's one of the things that don't interest me at all. But this morning's keynote showed me that fascinating things can come out of it. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
So I decided to dive into a story that gets all the way from the serious world of law books to the absolute bunkers of bumpology, also known as phrenology. You might have heard of it. Which is, I have to admit, a much more sciencey sounding name for the same kind of bullshit that bumpology would be. In case someone is not familiar with it, a few words. Phrenology is basically the discredited idea that the shape of your skull reveals your personality. It was developed by a German physician, Franz Josef Gall, in 1796. Think of it as like a 19th century pseudoscience meets self-help, because people were trying to find out things about themselves based on phrenology. But unfortunately, at least for its promoters, like our hero, I'm going to mention soon by name, usually Pontus is, who reminds me of the fact that I should probably name the person that I'm talking about. The whole thing didn't really stand up or hold up to the rigor of science. But that's just how science is. Like what took us there, we are where we are now, has been a bumpy road, wasn't it? See that what I did there? No. Okay, never mind. So let's travel back to 19th century Edinburgh. Often referred to as Edinburgh by foreigners. So a city that is and Richard Wiseman, who happens to live there. So that's a city famous for its mist, its thinkers as well, and for a brief moment in history, the peculiar passion of a certain George Combe. Is that how you pronounce someone whose name ends with an E?
Yeah, give it a sort of.
C-O-M-E?
I'd say Combe.
Okay, Combe. Okay, so who was George Combe? He was born in Edinburgh, as I said earlier, on the 21st of October, 1788. Hence his being featured on TWISH, because that was the 21st was this week. He was trained as a lawyer, and for decades promoted phrenology across Britain and beyond. Combe even founded the Edinburgh
good roll.
Phrenological Society in 1820 and wrote bestsellers like The Constitution of Man in 1828. In his era, he was known as the world's most famous phrenologist, a spokesman for bumps, basically. So, starting off as a successful lawyer, Combe's life could have played out in just dusty courtrooms with great respect to show for it. So he did get sucked up into something that was unexpected. The story goes that how it happened was that eureka moment of his was when in 1816, Combe attended a party in Edinburgh where a German physician and an acolyte of Franz Gall, Johann Spurzheim, performed brain dissection. And far from the horrors of, well, an average day's work in law, as we all know it, this demonstration really electrified Combe. And within a month, the young solicitor was hooked on what was called the new science of phrenology, which claimed that the shape of your skull revealed your character and destiny. Legend says this spectacle, well, what's not to like about that? There was lots of flesh, brain, and all that. So that convinced Combe that, and I quote, "The brain is the organ of the mind, an aggregate of several parts, each subserving a distinct mental faculty," end quote. In other words, big bunk in the right spot equals big talent, right? It's basically what it boils down to. It was like reading an ancient palmistry chart, except the palms were inside your skull. After the dissection, Combe was hooked. He published essays on phrenology in 1817 already and co-founded the first phrenology society in 1820, followed by many across the British Isles. So he became a bit of a star. But he didn't stop there. He set up a phrenology school lectured for decades, and wrote manuals like what was called Elements of Phrenology and A System of Phrenology. But his magnum opus was the aforementioned The Constitution of Man, which was a Victorian hit, a real hit, that argued that mental qualities are determined by the size, form, and constitution of the brain, which is, well, it was sensible in a way to think that, even especially back then. But it was all about the shape of the skull instead of the brain itself. But, well, we know now that not even the brain's different shapes can tell you anything about the personality, but we know better now. To prove their seriousness, members of the Phrenological Society of Edinburgh bought halls, amassed a museum of skulls and plaster casts, and launched into public lectures themselves. If you lived in Edinburgh at the time, you might have wandered into lively evenings of, well, gentlemen, some straight-laced, some wild-eyed, earnestly arguing over who had the best faculty bumps. So that's a good topic for everyone for tonight's bar, right?
So that Black Eyed Peas song was about. My
would you like to look at my
faculty
bump?
bumps? Yeah.
So basically, he promised Victorians they could read their fates by feeling their heads. Phrenology undercomes evangelism, soon swept into British pop culture. The Constitution of Man was such a bestseller that it was outsold in Britain at the time only by the Bible, the Pilgrim's Progress, and Robinson Crusoe. So that was a big hit. One source notes Com sold more copies of Constitution in 30 years than Darwin's Origin of Species did in its first 30 years. So imagine that phrenology outselling evolution, at least for a while. Well, that's just for everyone who thinks that pseudoscience outpacing science in terms of popularity and the spreading of ideas is a new phenomenon. It is definitely and demonstrably not. So, Com's book turned heads and occasionally stomachs as well, because one lady, on encountering its phrenological diagrams, reportedly flung it into the floor and declared it abominable. So, Com tailored phrenology to the times. He toured Europe and America, giving lectures that were legendary both for their seriousness and for their spectacle. On one American tour, he offered public reading of skulls. Audience members started giggling nervously, as Com would solemnly declare, based on cranial ridges, who was particularly gifted in, for example, combativeness or philoprogenitiveness. So there's ridiculously, seriously sounding names, but no, don't really holding anything serious. Sometimes audience members even challenged him, leading to lively debates, accusations of quackery, and a sort of public amusement that would be at home on social media today. The idea caught on because it was easy to understand and offered people hope of self-improvement. Find a bum for moral faculty and nurture it. So even the royals got into it, which is where it gets interesting. According to reports, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert invited Com to read their children's skulls. Picture that, the future king having a phrenologist feeling their toddlers' heads for genius spots. Well, one of the best pieces of evidence that it didn't really work is that he found one on Bertie, even though history has shown that good old Bertie was not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? I don't know how much you know about that, but, well, he was not known for his smarts. But his devotion, Com's devotion, was absolutely legendary. He practiced what he preached. He and his fiancée underwent a phrenological compatibility test before marriage. In 1833, he married actress Sarah Siddon's daughter, Cecilia, but only after a phrenologist declared their heads to be a match. Sweet romantic gesture or an ultimate get-out clause? So you decide. But speaking of heads, and I'm finishing soon, some of Com's other pursuits get pretty bizarre because by the late 1820s, Com and his Phrenological Society turned their attention to criminals. They claimed felons must have deficiencies in the moral areas of the skull and bulges in the destructive areas. That sounds a little ominous, right? They even measured two notorious Edinburgh murderers, Burke and Hare. They are very well known in the history of Edinburgh criminal records. When William Burke was hanged in 1829, phrenologists made a plaster cast of his head to search for these evil bumps, as they called them. If phrenology were true, Burke's skull should have screamed murder based on what they had previously known through the bumps. Well, it didn't. And Dr. Thomas Stone, an anatomist at the University of Edinburgh, even analysed Burke's skulls, and in his public dissection of the body found no evidence whatsoever of any special criminal bump pattern. So that could have been it, but that really wasn't. And Com even arranged for himself and his own head to be examined after death, but obviously nothing was really found. Nothing of the extraordinary. So, yes, it was discredited even in his life by the late 19th century. Phrenology was basically a Victorian carnival trick, nothing else. Popular but falling out of favor. So, modern researchers even tested phrenology with brain scans and found zero correlation between scalp shapes and personality. As well, what a surprise. So, George Com's legacy, just to wrap up, he was an energetic promoter of a convincing bit of a bunk, a celebrity of pseudoscience, and today you're more likely to find Com's principles in the odd novelty at a magic show, or cited ironically on a skeptical podcast like this. But for a generation, George Com was the head-bumping booster of Edinburgh, turning a city's curiosity and his own quest for significance into one of history's funniest lessons of scientific skepticism. History is a reminder that even seemingly scientific ideas can turn out to be flat wrong. And his birthday was this week on the 23rd of October.
All right, let's drink to that. Okay. And as a man with an abnormally tiny little head, I'm very interested in moving on to the next segment. I don't know what comb would have made of this tiny little dome. Okay, so let's move on to the news stories. We're going to start with Deborah. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, good afternoon. As a proud patron of Humanists UK, I'm very pleased to be able to announce that the UN demands asylum protection for the non-religious, and this has been based on citing evidence submitted by Humanists UK. The Special Rapporteur on the Freedom of Religion or Belief, Dr. Nazila Ghania, is due to present her report to the UN Third Committee this week. Now, the report focuses on the freedom of religion or belief of people on the move, which is a far nicer term than asylum seekers or the homeless or whatever. And it identifies a critical ignorance of the non-religious, in quotes, in asylum credibility assessments, which often leads to the wrongful rejection of genuine claims from humanists, atheists, and those accused of blasphemy or apostasy. So, in a significant recognition of the Humanists UK work, the report cites its consultation response to the Special Rapporteur, and the evidence details those specific barriers faced by the non-religious in the asylum system. And further, the report flags Humanists UK's outreach programme Faith to Faithless, which some of you may have heard of. I remember when I was when I ran Central London Humanist Group for a couple of years, that there were a few people who used to come to the pub once a month, just to see us, because they were kind of transiting from leaving a very dominating religious background. And it was just transitional phase for sociability, it really, really made a difference. People who were leaving very strict Islam or Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that. And Faith to Faithless is Humanists UK support program for people who have left high control religious groups. They really make a difference to people. So I think overall, this is really, really good news.
And we've got plenty of Americans here with us, right? I mean, you could potentially try and claim asylum now that you got better chance.
Yeah.
But if there could be a bump on the head found that is responsible for religious affiliations or just an inclination, I think that could be an excuse. So that should be basis for pardons and asylum as well.
Well, if we could find a Trump bump, I have I do have a bandsaw. So
But historically, we know this within our skeptical and humanist and freethinker communities that we've been facing this issue for such a long time. Many of our important personalities being charged with blasphemy laws or being charged with, being atheists or apostates. And so finally to have some kind of official recognition of going forward is so important. Of course, we've had the organization Freedom from Religion that has been active, and I've seen Nick around here who runs the religious trauma support groups all over the world and is trying to find people to help him branch out into other countries, and the lovely humanists of the Czech Republic have taken him up on that. I'm now running a group there as well. But yes, this is an issue we've been facing for such a long time. So to have the UN finally recognize, hey, maybe we should also take care of the atheist and apostate people is very, very nice.
Yeah, I know that Darryl Ray from the FRF was over in the UK recently. He did a number of skeptics in the pubs and a couple of humanist groups and such like, and I believe that they're going to be working kind of closely with Faith to Faithless as well to try and I guess unify that approach and strengthen the message and stuff. So fingers crossed for more good news.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, good news, really. So I was also tasked with finding some good news to talk about this podcast. So I dug down into the news, and when I got back to 1951, I actually found some.
That was the last time anything good.
Yes, right.
We're still keeping the pattern of time travel.
Yeah, right. So I was a latecomer to the skeptical movement. I didn't know what that was until I got a smartphone back in 2009. I had to figure out all the apps on the phone, and there was something called podcasts on that. So I downloaded that, or rather downloaded the first. So it asked me, what are you interested in? So, okay, science, question mark? And then what came down was The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, because that's the story everybody tells. But that's true. So my brand new iPhone 3GS told me about skepticism. But so I bought it. I was really hooked from the beginning. But there was one topic that people were talking about all the time that I didn't really knew what it was, and it was homeopathy. According to what everybody said on the various podcasts, that was apparently some kind of fake medicine that didn't work, and I didn't know what it was. So how come did I not know about this? And this is the story of why I didn't know about it, because homeopathy is almost unknown in Sweden, except for skeptics and for people who are hardcore alt-med nerds, but those are, relatively rare. They could be even rarer, but so homeopathy actually was big in Sweden way back. So if you go back before the Second World War, Sweden was very influenced by Germany. Before that became out of fashion, and so by 1950, homeopathy was well known and commonly used in Sweden. The largest company was called Drogon. AB just means limited, so Drogon, so drug on, basically, and they had around 50% of the Swedish market share of homeopathy. But then disaster struck for the business, because one of the smaller homeopathy manufacturers accused the bigger ones for cheating, and they reported them to the police. And the accusation was that instead of going through the whole potentiation process and the endless dilutions, these big companies, Drogon AB and another company called Pharmadrog AB. So it's really, I don't think those names would have sounded as good today as they were there. Big Drog and Big Pharma. Anyway, the accusation was that they were simply ordering sugar pills from a candy factory and relabeled them. Different names, same pill, different labels depending on what people had ordered. And so several directors and other employees at the big companies were charged in court for fraudulent marketing and also tax evasion. So the lawsuits dragged on for 3 years, and they were constantly in the press, in the daily newspapers. The general public gradually got the impression that homeopathy may be just a big scam, which it was. As the legal proceedings went on, the prosecution stated again and again that homeopathy couldn't work in any case. First of all, they had cheated, but homeopathy couldn't work. And most medical experts in the news, they agreed with them. And the interesting thing is that the defense attorneys agreed. That was the only excuse that they could come up with, the only defense they could have come up with, because it was very clear that they had been cheating. They had been selling just sugar pills without the potentiation, without the magical thing, just relabeling them, sending them out to pharmacies and to local homeopaths that have placed orders. So those evidence couldn't be denied. The defense lawyers were panicking, and so they had no alternative but to rely on two counter-arguments. The first one was that no homeopath or other receiver had ever complained about the quality of the pills. So everybody was happy with the product, so what's the problem here? And the second was that also that nobody could tell a difference between these fake pills and real homeopathy pills. And the reason was that it is actually the same. And so nobody could say that had been any fraud at all, because we are selling sugar pills. Everybody knows it's just sugar pills, so what are you complaining about? Funnily, the courts did not agree. So several people got multiple years in prison. All the confiscated goods, the pills, but also homeopathic handbooks that had been, I don't know what that looks like actually. Maybe they're blank pages only. Anyway, it was all seized. It was piled up on a big city dump outside of Stockholm and burnt. 20 tons of sugar pills went up in smoke, and it was in all the papers. And at the time, it took almost 3 years to get to this stage.
Did that smell nice?
I was going to say.
You know, I am old, but I'm not that old. So maybe.
Actually, when you start burning sugar at the first stage, it smells quite nice. But when you're actually burning it, it's not.
Yeah.
And if you inhale too much of it, you get diabetes.
Oh
yeah.
It won't cure you from anything, though.
No.
Anyway, so somehow the homeopathy business in Sweden never recovered from this scandal, and Sweden today is more or less free from homeopathy. And another interesting thing about this is not only has homeopathy been forgotten, nobody uses it in generally, but actually this scandal is also forgotten. Even Swedes do not know about this, and I think that's fascinating that this one thing gave homeopathy such a bad reputation that was actually reduced or removed from the consciousness of people, and that is still the case today. So I didn't know what homeopathy was.
It very well could be that it's homeopathic consciousness that they have now. So it's just diluted.
Let's not descend into homeopathy jokes.
One last thing here is that now we have to find some way to repeat this process for every other country to get rid of homeopathy. I don't know how we'll do that, but we can discuss that at the bar.
And it's the complete opposite of what the class action lawsuits are going on in the US, the effect of them. Because in the US, there's a class action lawsuit against homeopathy makers in California. And there, the defense attorneys are claiming it is clearly stated on the packaging that this has no effect. And because of that, because they're publicly saying, we told you this doesn't work, you parents who've given this to your children and expected them for them to get better, we are not liable. So by admitting that it doesn't work, they are winning the lawsuits against the parents whose kids remain sick because on the shelves they did not know, oh, this is also in the drugstore, so I'll take this cough syrup instead of that cough syrup. And the parents did not buy it always knowingly. They sometimes bought it by accident. But you would think that in the same case, the defense actually admitting, yeah, we know it doesn't work, would have an effect on the homeopathy business. But no, because then the companies go and say, we won this lawsuit. And no one actually talks about what was in the lawsuit and what they admitted to be able to win.
It's similar to the legislation for mediumistic services in the UK, which is that now you can't claim to have supernatural powers. Actually, it was from the sort of 1735 Act onwards, but they will get away with it by saying for entertainment purposes only. But it's a kind of a nod and a wink to say, well, we have to say this, but if you want to come because you believe in it, then you know. You can come.
I've literally heard that said in psychic shows I've been to.
Yeah.
In fact, Sally Morgan's got a slide before she goes on that sort of says, it's all fake, boom, and it's gone. Like that. It's lovely, really nicely done. Okay, let's move on, and it's time for mine. So, as I say, I tried to crowdsource my story here. And I got some lovely choices. I had exciting results from blood test for 50 cancers. That was Tracy Jolliffe. Thank you, Tracy. I'm not going to try and bumblefuck my way through science stuff, though, so let's not do that. There was almond-sized crab and tiny lantern shark discovered in Australia. Cute pictures. That was Elaine Hutton that sent that. I'll give it a pass. Life-changing eye implant helps blind patients read again, from Christine Switzer and Bob Brady. I'm not appropriately skilled to tackle that, but maybe Ash Johnson, who was speaking about some horrific cat abuse in the name of science at Skeptic Camp yesterday, might be able to talk about that one. There was study shows peanut allergy decrease from early introduction guidelines. From a few people sent me that one, including Susan Gerbic, friend of the show. Hello, Susan. But with all of that, the story I'm going to go with is this one. ULEZ is improving people's health. That was Marianne, who is here this weekend. I don't think she's in the room, that sent me that one. So ULEZ, I know it does sound like a sort of you're starting off some hate speech or something like that. So let me explain what that means, okay? ULEZ is the ultra low emission zone. It's a charge for certain vehicles that do not meet specific emission standards, implemented to improve air quality in London. So the first section of their scheme was launched in 2019 in the central part of the city. It was expanded across inner London in 2021 and then enlarged again in 2023. So we've just had a glut of news stories coming out about it in the last week or so, right? So I've got some headlines to read you here, right? So please, skeptical spider senses, everybody. See if you can spot which one of these is not like the other. LBC. Sadiq Khan hails ULEZ success as London under limit for toxic pollutant for first time. BBC goes with London nitrogen dioxide levels fall to legal limit. Innovation News Network goes for London air pollution sees major drop after ULEZ launch. The Guardian says dramatic fall in London's levels of deadly pollutants after ULEZ expansion. And the Daily Mail goes with Sadiq Khan's hated ULEZ expansion had no impact on air pollution while raking in millions from drivers. So I don't know if you spotted which of those was different than the others, right? But let's put a pin in that Daily Mail one, right? And look at positive ones to start with, because this is a good news show, right? So some collected highlights from those various news outlets, right? So yeah, the level of nitrogen dioxide pollution in London has fallen to within the legal limit for the first time since UK regulations were introduced in 2010. Roadside nitrogen dioxide levels, which is not a fun gas, apparently. Impedes lung development, raises the risk of lung cancer. So those have decreased by 27% across London since the introduction of ULEZ in 2019. Small particle emissions from vehicle exhausts were 31% lower in outer London in 2024 than they would have been had ULEZ not been expanded in 2023. So that fine particulate matter, major air pollutant, it gets into your lungs, potentially entering the bloodstream and posing significant health risks. So apparently air quality has improved at 99% of monitoring sites across London since 2019. Good news, everybody. And according to a City Hall report earlier this year, there were nearly 100,000 fewer non-ULEZ compliant vehicles detected in London on an average day in September 2024 compared with June 2023. So, Dr. Gary Fuller, who was Associate Professor in Air Quality Measurement at Imperial College, described ULEZ as a game changer for reducing toxins in the air, and he, quote, could not recall a policy that matches its impact, end quote. So, yeah, it is a game changer because they changed the game significantly, right? And it appears to have paid dividends, right? Let's make a metaphor, right? We're all live audience in the Mercure at the moment, right? So just imagine, right? Those who were the ones that were out last night looking for takeaway, right? Okay, some of you, the hands, okay, all right, okay. So your risk of noxious emissions is significantly higher, right, than the rest of the audience because of that today, right? So after this podcast, we're going to have people out at the lifts imposing a fine on you if you want to enter the lift at that time due to the increased noxious fumes that you are going to release in those lifts, okay? Of course, the Mercure are ahead of the game by shutting down one of the lifts completely to, you know, I guess that's the hotel equivalent of pedestrianising a city centre, right? So, well done to the Mercure for helping everybody increase their step count, right?
So, which can basically, by taking steps, you might release more of those aforementioned gases. So, just saying.
Thank you for destroying my metaphor. That's all right. I was about to move
at your
on
service,
anyway. Right? So why was I interested in ULEZ in the first place? Well, I've kind of been around some of the protests about this, not down in London, but a couple of years ago in Glasgow. I went along to a protest because they were implementing the low emission zone in Glasgow. Now, as I walked into George Square in the city centre, somebody who was not part of the official speakers, but he had borrowed like a bullhorn from one of the organisers, and was standing in the middle of George Square in Glasgow going, "The white race is being replaced," etc. Nobody chopped that audio. And oh, damn it. So I walked into that, right, and that was a little bit jarring, and I came up against, and I think, you know, those of you that have been in the main room today have seen like some sort of conspiracy theory propaganda up on the big screen. Like, I saw a lot of those firsthand, people with those type of t-shirts and placards, and had some fun conversations with them, wrote an article about it for The Skeptic. Good times, interesting stuff, right? But, you know, just in terms of Glasgow, the new data, well, back in 2024 showed like a 34% reduction in levels of nitrogen dioxide in that area, right? So it's been successful in Glasgow, it's been successful in London. So why, oh why, do we have that negative headline from the Daily Mail? Have they done some serious investigative journalism and uncovered some conspiracies? Well, maybe, right? Let's not be too snipey, all right? But what it says in the article, I'll give you potted highlights, right? Scientists at the University of Birmingham say the expansion of ULEZ in August 2023 had no significant impact on lowering air pollution. So that's scientists that are saying that with their lab coats and such like. So that's credible, right? We then jump to some quotes, right? So we've got Thomas Turrell, who is the Transport and Environmental spokesperson for the City Hall Conservatives. You can do a theatric boo there if you want. This is just further evidence that ULEZ expansion was about raising money rather than improving air quality. This is exactly what TfL's own modelling showed, but yet again, Sadiq Khan is ignoring the evidence when it doesn't suit his agenda. The least the mayor could do is use the cameras to do something helpful, like tackle the epidemic of car theft in our outer London boroughs, right? Now, and so on, and so on, and so on, right? But if you go lower in the article, it seems to get a little bit more rational. Now, if anybody was in the brilliant workshop earlier on, How to Debunk with Emma Monk, okay, which even the rhyme alone is, she's in the room now, okay. It was amazing, not just because of the rhyme. How to Build Lego with Brian Eggo was refused by by the QED committee, short-sighted fools that they are, right? But it was great. But one of the points in there was, a lot of times the Daily Mail and journalists like that might debunk their own arguments further down in the article. So I read to the bottom of the Daily Mail, just for you. I read a full Daily Mail article, right? And having to clean my mouth out afterwards, right? But it does go on to quote the actual lead author of that paper. And he says, indeed, the expansion did have a limited effect on London air quality, but this was because London drivers by that point had already largely switched to eco-friendly vehicles and newer petrol diesels. So it's called sort of like the anticipation effect, right? So this is in the Daily Mail article itself, right? And it's got a response to the study from, and it gives a number of responses to the study from a spokesperson for the Mayor of London, okay? And again, all positive stuff, all the stuff I've mentioned already. So what do we learn from this? If you're going to read a Daily Mail article, just skip to like paragraph 7, and you might get some actual journalism there. So next time you're down at the Big Smoke, everybody, please don't refer to it as the Big Smoke. Suggestions for a new name.
Slightly smaller smoke?
Yeah, well, I went for the Big Breaths, but diction is very difficult in that respect. So, but yeah, good news all round. Fantastic. And now, hopefully I haven't run on too much. Claire, over to you. And you're still drinking the Iron Brew, even though you said it was a hate crime. I think it's growing on you.
I'm sorry, I'm a skeptic. That means by definition I'm a masochist. So like, can I just check who was yesterday at Skeptic Camp? Who saw Caradox talk about puns? I commissioned his work after seeing him yesterday for this story, and you will soon understand why. So, Beavers deliver infrastructure ahead of human timeline under budget. This is a story from my country, from Czech Republic, from earlier this year, where beavers, the dam beavers, built a dam that saved my country's government 30 million crowns, so 1.2 million euro in building. So for 8 years, the Czech government has been planning to build these dams in an area that used to be wetlands, but because of communist military interference, these lands were dried out and the fauna and flora over there was destroyed. And there was attempts to make it a wetland again. The area is called Brdsko. Not that I expect you to be able to pronounce it, just letting you know, since we're supposed to name things.
Brdsko?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
thank you. Of course, the Hungarian can do it. And the area is called the Padrtsky Rybník, where this was supposed to happen, but the Padrtsky Lake. So, in 2018, this whole thing started, that the government wanted to put in these new wetlands and these new dams to be able to create these wetlands again. But of course, bureaucracy happens and various ownership rights become an issue. In 2020, an 8-member beaver family moves in and starts quietly in the nights building little starter dams and little areas around this place.
Totally ignoring the bureaucracy.
Yes, wait, I have a pun for that. Do beavers lodge planning applications? Yes. Yes, so the beavers did not check with the Czechs about doing this. And they continued with their little quiet work overnight. And in this year, the wetlands have returned. And everyone was just kind of shocked that this happened. It was altogether, the dam beavers built 7 dams in an area now including about 5 hectares, so 0.05 kilometers square. Just in a time that apparently with an excavator you could do it in a week. They did it in over a couple of years, but the final works, just kind of that last drop into the chalice, was earlier this year, and the wetlands are there, and it's amazing how this little story has made its rounds all over the world media. It was picked up by National Geographic as well, and has now led to multiple symposiums about the reintroduction of the wild beaver in various European countries. There's already 2 initiatives. It's called Life Beaver. This is the first one, which is in the Balkan area, that they want to reintroduce more beavers, and then also Beaver Portugal, which is not something you are searching, like if you do search for it, just be careful. But it is an initiative from Portugal. That's a real thing. And yeah, so I guess at the end, all I can say is checkmate.
I'm wondering if that will result in politicians showing more interest in beaver in general. Well.
Do you guys want to hear the rest of the puns that I got from Kurt? I didn't make the gun. Beavers and bureaucrats collide. Beavers get the job done. Beavers are engineers, damn good ones too. You can tell by their tail that beavers are flat-packed rodents. They arrive as kids. And I remember seeing a picture of what a beaver had built across the stream, and I thought, that's weird. It was also a bunch of naughty ones, but I cut those out.
See Claire in the bar. Just go up and ask Claire about beaver. Okay, time is getting the better of us, folks. We're going to head our way towards the end of the show, but we do not end without a quote. Andras.
Okay, yeah, I'm eager to share this. I'm an eager beaver. Okay, so, that was bad. So I'm gonna turn to Alice Howarth, who's one of the runners of this event, and we are very thankful to her for it and for everything that she does. It's a bit of a longer quote, but I think it really fits this event, and that being the last one of this sort as well. So, the one thing I think skeptics around the world do really well is form strong communities. The grassroots social bonding style of skepticism, both in Europe and Australia, makes it a really friendly and productive place to be, and that makes those conferences so special. Of course, the talks at skeptical conferences are often outstanding, and the organizers all make a massive effort to put on interesting panel discussions and great entertainment. But at the heart of it all is that community spirit.
Absolutely. Whoa. Couldn't finish on anything.
Go, Alice.
Yeah. Okay. I think that takes us to the end of the show. So big thanks to the audience. Give yourselves a hand. And all that's left is to say goodbye. Get up, yeah.
Scoot it up. What I was going to say is Vislat.
Naschledanou. Goodbye.
Hey do.
There we go. Let's have the tunes now.
Thanks, everybody. Have fun.
There's a few cans of wine really left there, and there's shop bread if anybody wants some Scottish treats. Alright, don't make me take all that home, okay? Thanks again.
And thanks for Melanie and Bob, to Melanie and Bob for helping us out as well. So, yeah, see you around.
You told me that aliens really exist. You met them and swooned with elation. They
wouldn't go support me, but
Demoted while a charlatan will.
okay.
The results are so hazy, it's driving me crazy. I don't know how you
Yeah, we finished a minute ago.
Your results are so hazy, you're driving me crazy. Guess which
So
one
what
is
is
this
the
to
last
see?
video?
Your results are so hazy, it's driving me crazy. I don't know how you can believe. If results are so hazy, it's driving me crazy. Guess which one of us is to see? You're driving me crazy, you're driving me crazy.
So,
I don't know how you can believe.
I'm on that, by the way.
It's all about
We
Beaver
have
and how
met
they build
before,
dams and
many years ago.
what you should do to protect your dams.